Live, we're ready to go. Welcome to the live stream tonight, you guys. Sorry for being a little bit late, but we're going to have a very important conversation about internalized mixed race narratives and how they affect us, because this is something that's very personal to me. Of course, I've definitely dealt with this, and I want to start off by saying that I've dealt with we deal with it like three ways, right? Like when I was in the, because I lived in with the white community, I lived in the black community, and so when I was in the black white community, it's like they have a negative narrative towards black people, right? So it's like we can internalize that, and they think like they associate blackness with being ghetto and being ratchet and being this and being hood rats and being this or whatever, and that could be internalized. A lot of mixed people can internalize that and think and act on that and think that's what being black is all about. So that's something you got to overcome. And then I lived in the black community, and they have a very negative outlook on white people, of course, because of the history. They're colonizers, they're cave dwellers, they're Neanderthals, they're all that, they're degraded DNA, they're all this crazy stuff too. So it's like that. I internalized that. I'm like, oh, I felt ashamed of my white blood and feeling like, oh, I'm just a fucking Neanderthal cave dweller person, right? So, and now it's like we could get it three ways, and then we could have a lot of people who are just hated specifically for being mixed and saying, we're unnatural, we're this, we are the destruction of the black civilization, we're destruction of, people don't want us, we're destructive to the race, because people want to preserve their race and their culture, so they view us as a threat and race mixing as a threat, and us, they don't view us as one of us, and that's perfectly, that's what happens a lot. So I just want to know about, do you guys have similar experiences with that, like internalizing anti mixed race narratives, or what are your guys' experience with that?
Well, like growing up, I do also remember, just being fed just a lot of like negative images about like Black American culture and about how, okay, they are loud, they're very aggressive, they're very criminal minded. And at that point, it was just something that I didn't want to get compared to. So I would put my whiteness over it, especially just due to all the societal perceptions that a lot of people tend to have about Black culture. But then as I was just growing up though, and then becoming involved in, you know, social settings that you guys are already aware of, getting involved with them and seeing how, they actually are not really all that accepting of me as I was hoping for them to be, and that they actually hold and harbor a lot of anti mixed race sentiments. I was like, you know what, forget about this. But then that's ultimately where how we can heal from this is community, because is what's going to provide a healthy level of validation and insight into our lived experiences. And it's what's also going to give us a sense of belonging, and a sense that we are enough the way that we are. We have still survived. We've survived all the hardships. We've survived all that trauma. We've survived the social implications that comes along with being who we are. Otherwise, we would probably be 6 feet under. So that demonstrates that we are stronger than what we realize, and that we can actually come together as a collective and strive for good. Strive for spiritual healing, emotional healing, and just letting our folks know, regardless of which stage of development they're at or where they are in their lives, that, hey, you guys have an open space here and a community, and that you'll be loved, accepted, we'll advocate for you, we'll fight for you, we'll do whatever we can to make you feel comfortable in this very rugged world that we live in, this very cold world that we live in.
I love what you said so much about, I had the same experience, right? It's like, in this in like the white community, they have very anti-black sentiments, and so I went to the black community, and it's like they have very anti-mixed and anti-white sentiment. So it's like no matter where we go, we're gonna be faced with that type of propaganda, that there's gonna be somebody who don't like us for whatever part we are, especially in America. America is very black and white, right? It's very, just like I posted the thing about, a lot of people just want to be able to check a box, and they already could feel like they know you if you could just check a box and say this is what you are, and they could there's like a safety in that. But there's people are scared of the unknown, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
because it all just, oh yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, because it just all boils down to just the racial binary nature of the USA. And it's going to be like that for a while. Don't get me wrong, we are definitely making gains here. Our numbers, the mixed race population, we're exploding. So we eventually we're going to attain the recognition that we deserve. But then again, we understand what humans can be like and how tribalistic people are and how people have a tendency to ethnically and racially and culturally gatekeep themselves. But then that's just where it's all serving a purpose. And that purpose should give us the incentive to form again our own community, our own collective, and just let the world out there know that, hey, there's a safe space for us and that you don't have to feel like you are no alone. You don't have to feel like you have to try so hard to fit in and just to walk on eggshells when you're trying to fit into this community, though, because that's when it becomes very unhealthy. And doing so would just be like drinking poison and trying to expect the other person to die.
Yeah, drinking poison and expect another person. Exactly. That's why I'm all about healing. That's why I'm all about healing and not having no resentment or hatred or nothing, no type of unforgiveness in people, because like it's like drinking poison expecting the other person to die, because we do have to embrace healing as a people because we get it from so many different sides, right? So yeah, that's why we share that same mission, right?
Exactly, though. I mean, like a lot of people now, one thing that I can't agree with the angry biracial about is how, okay, that a lot of us have complained about how the black community has the crabs in the barrel mentality. Well, we have that too. And in fact, at times, if I'm going to have to be blunt here, but at times we can even be worse than the black community and sometimes worse than the other community because of all the trauma that we may have faced from both sides of the family, or the fact that we've been racially ostracized by both sides, or given the fact that we are affected by that and then we just carry out our childhood experiences into our um, day-to-day lives. And we've seen that a lot in our circles. I've seen that too, even growing up. So at times we can even be worse because, if anything, the black community seems like they are a little bit better at collectivizing than we are. But then that's ultimately is another phenomenon that ought to give us the incentive to emulate what we see the black community doing in terms of collectivizing. I mean, that's why there is Black Twitter. And look at white people. They collectivize all the time. They will look after their communities. They will uplift one another. Asians, as we know, are very tribalistic. But now it's our turn to start, feeling inspired to do those very same things, because those models is what, or that model is what's going to truly sponsor the healing that we are all striving for.
Absolutely. And it's about, self love, right? It's about, like, because we already know most people, they don't really have too much empathy or sympathy for a mixed person, because it's like, oh, well, you're not one of us anyway. So why would I really want to care about, what you got going on or whatever, or what, I don't really care. It doesn't really affect me. And people only really care about. So I definitely think we do need that. It's like that sort of collectivization. We definitely do, and I think that's very important. I want to promote that as much as I can so we could have that type of community, have that type of support, so we could be secure, so we could feel like we have that too. Like, we have that sense of community as well. I go hard for that. I really do want us to have a healthy, positive community as much. I try to push for that as much as I can, and it's a lot of work, but I do think that, we could do it. We got to realize how important that is and just try to work towards that all together, right? Because I think that that's a big part of healing. Having it takes a village, right? It definitely takes a village. You can't really be out here without a village. What, you gonna be out there in the wilderness by yourself, getting eat up by wolves? And no, you can't do it all on your own. Nobody could do this all on their own, right? So I definitely think that is a big part of healing. So that's definitely true. So I want to talk about another part of it, right? So here's something that affected me. It's like I see this a lot with a lot of mixed people. It's like they question their existence, right? And it's very sad because it's like, why would I be born into this? Even the history of it makes me feel sad and bitter about it, because I'm like, why are people creating these people just for them to be born and be treated like shit by people, and be treated like they're nothing, be treated like they're the bottom of the barrel? It's like in either community, whether like we're always gonna be the bottom of the barrel just because we can't fully represent that community. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's really tough and hard. That's why, again, it goes back to having a sense of community. And yeah, it's just like I've seen that a lot. Like I've seen TikToks and videos of saying, oh, there's too many, there's a mixed person saying there's too many mixed people, y'all are just, y'all need to stop creating mixed people. And then like them like saying, oh yeah, I wouldn't recommend you guys creating mixed people because I'm mixed and I hate my experience, I don't like being mixed. And I see that a lot, and it's very sad. It's very sad thinking that, since we're mixed, that we shouldn't exist. And some people, I've actually internalized that at one point, because I was like, oh, since nobody really like mixed people, nobody really want to, celebrate mixed people. It's like I
Yeah,
felt like I should be invisible, like I
exactly.
should
Though I
have a
mean,
voice. I should just try to remain as invisible as possible, so nobody, because it's like a sense of safety there. If I'm not visible, then I'll feel safe. I just want to keep low key. I just want to keep, it was like an underachiever thing. Like I don't really want to make too much noise or nothing like that. And I don't really want to have attention on myself or anything like that. I don't really want to it made me feel like I want to be invisible so that people can't sit here and hate me for existing. So that's
and
something that I've had to work through.
my experience is precisely the same. Because
Mm.
when I was that mixed race neo-Nazi, I would say stuff like how I would get with a purebred Aryan princess and dilute blackness out of me to where it's now a thing of the distant
Mm.
past. Because
Mm.
I wanted to just only solely be white. I
Mm.
thought that that would be a good plan to implement in order to achieve the objective that I wanted to achieve.
Mhm.
And it was starting to become very cringe and unhealthy. And I
Mhm.
still take a lot of responsibility for that. So before there can be any healing, there needs to be self forgiveness, self compassion, and also um, personal accountability. I take
Oh, for
a
sure.
great deal of accountability
I
for
believe in
that
that too.
mentality that I had. I have
Mhm.
fully forgiven myself. I love
Yep.
myself now. I'm now saying that I would love a woman who is like myself, especially when it's just better because you're now, you're not limiting your options. And it's just much more of a healthy variety. That's what we need for our people, our healthy
Mhm.
varieties, those
Mhm.
number one components that I had already outlined before, and then that can truly bring healing and truly make it to something that could come to fruition. But that's just not what a whole lot of us are doing. So until those two important components, again, the self forgiveness, the compassion, and taking personal accountability, until those vital principles can come to fruition in our people, then we will start to see the healing take place.
Absolutely. I'm all about personal accountability. I'm all about that. I'm all about owning up. Like, hey, this is where I was at this point. I'm trying to work through it. I'm trying to get through it, because I think of it as like, how like internalized racism that happens a lot within like the black community. We see people who internalize all like, oh yeah, black people are this. They internalize that and they view themselves. This is all about how we view ourselves, right? So, and I want to fight against that. It takes honesty. It takes accountability to be able to look at yourself. Hey, I've took on subconsciously. Maybe it's a subconscious thing. We're not always like, hey, this is how I choose to think, but subconsciously, some negative narratives and belief systems get inside of us, and that we need to really take a look at and be like, hey, this is not healthy. We got to question ourselves, right? We have to question, like, okay, we have to look honestly and take a good honest look at ourselves and be like, hey, this is not healthy for me. I've I got to take a look at myself, like I said, and get rid of belief systems that are not healthy for us. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I want us to view ourselves, because how other people, we can't control how other people view us. We really can't. But of course, I believe in trying to represent ourselves the best way and having the best light. But that's none of our. We can't really control. If somebody hates us, they hate us. Like, we can't really sit here. I'm not gonna beg and try to cry for people to not. I'm not really. That's none of my business. But I am in control of how I could view myself. I want to view myself in the best possible light, and that's a little note that I wanted to talk about too. How it affects us that I don't want to say we're not allowed to celebrate, because I don't believe in that. I'm like, look, you could do whatever you want, but I want to say it's not socially acceptable for people to be celebrated for being mixed, right? It's like, oh, it's not like a social, it's not really well received yet, because we look at like Holly Berry, how she won the Emmy. Oh, she was the first black woman. It's only, we have to deny a part of ourselves in order to be, to for it to be celebrated, for it to be like, oh, this is the first. You know how like in history too, it's like these are iconic, like Katherine Johnson. She was a triracial woman, but we had to only celebrate one side of herself because she had to check a box, right? It's complicated for, it's like you got to check one box here or there. You can't be all of it. You have to be one for us to be able to, like, feel comfortable. It's about like, we make people feel uncomfortable. We do, because I think we question people's beliefs. Like, people are very, like, very indoctrinated into this belief that it's black or white, it's this or that, and you can't be both. So our existence makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes people feel, it questions our
Exactly.
beliefs, right? So
And
it's something that we
even
have to. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go on. Sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead. I want you to say what you gotta say.
Is that I was just going to piggyback right off of that though, and even a bunch of people, even who may live in, let's just say, my hometown, Berkeley, California, or just the San Francisco Bay Area. It's is known for its progressive and left wing liberal ideals, and that's okay. But I don't really, or I just don't really remember much representation for mixed race and biracial, multiracial people. And I just personally have even found that even within like left wing liberal areas, still it just seems like the mixed race topic is something that just conjures up a lot of discomfort in a lot of people. It's either is going to be discomfort within them, or it's going to be some level of cognitive dissonance. Because when, let's just say, we see somebody there who is, you know, all about the Stop Asian Hate, or Black Lives Matter, or Black liberation, or LGBT rights, all of that, again, that is okay. But what about our level of recognition? Because it also seems as though, of me growing up in Berkeley, California for the majority of my life, it just seems like some people are hesitant to talk about that because of how it would also entail them talking about the Asian community or talking about the black community, and about how even like a black Asian mixed person has even faced a lot of racial hostility from the Asian community, especially given the fact that Asian communities tend to be very tribalistic, or about how even the black community has even mistreated some of their mixed race family members, or by saying that they have too much of the blood of the white devil, or how they just don't want to deal with their white family members. So all that stuff would also entail saying that white people aren't the only ones who can be racist. Asians can, black people can, Latinos can, whites can, everybody can be racist and mistreat mixed race people. It would also entail these, like, I guess you could say, social justice groups. It would also entail them calling out all those groups and all those people. But if they do that, they're probably going to lose their power, their money, and their clout.
I agree, and it's so easy to like be self-righteous and be like, "Oh, only this community could be racist, or only this community could be violent." And it's like, and they don't want to see that life is messy. Like, there's always good and bad within everything. We always like to be so black and white thinking. Like, these are the good people, these are the bad people, right? And it's like we don't want to face that within ourselves. All of us have good and bad. All of us have done good and bad things, and it's so hard for people to like wrap their heads, like, two things could exist at once, right? you know and it's like so hard for people's minds because we're so indoctrinated into the black and white thinking, into like good versus evil, like these people are this way and these people are this way, and if you challenge that belief system, I'm gonna, I'll have a meltdown about it, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's like, it's
because
very, yeah. What'd you say?
yeah, because it basically is going to go against their narratives that black people or Asian people or black and brown people are victims, are like helpless victims who need everybody's help. But I also see us as needing either just as much help or probably even more help, since a lot of us still continue to face hostility and just racial alienation from all sides.
We do need
So
help. We
these
all
social
need help.
justice groups, exactly, we all more importantly need help, but our people most definitely need it because of the ongoing
Absolutely.
racial alienation that our people are facing. So these social justice groups, I mean, to put it bluntly, you guys are basically useless. These social justice groups have been very useless and unhelpful for mixed race people. You're not going to call out any of these people. You're not going to call out the black community or the Asian community or the Latino community or even how they've even treated their mixed race families. They're not going to do that because, like I said earlier, they're not going to make any money off of that. They're going to possibly lose their power and their clout if they do that. But I just have to, you know, be honest about that and just how honestly politically useless and unhelpful they've been. But hopefully, my message here will give them the incentive to maybe step their game up for us. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to say that they're pretty useless.
Absolutely, because we need allyship. We definitely do. I want to build as many allies as I can. I want to appreciate and like, I want to stand by my allies. I want people because we're not created by ourselves. Mixed people, we're created by monoracial people, right? So we need some monoracial people to be our allies because we are a very small minority still, and I do want allyship from them and make sure that if they do create us out of love, because sometimes of course we're created out of fetishization ship where it's like they just want to breed out their it's out of sometimes it is out of self-hate, right? It's not out of love. So but I do want to connect with the people who made us out of love, who just found somebody and that of another race and they created a mixed kid. It's not like some weird fetish or some weird self-hate type of thing where they just want to and I do want to create allyships with as many people as we can, and I do want to encourage. I put that out there. Definitely, 100%.
Same here. But then again, it says in order for them to even, or in order for us to even remotely establish any kind of alliances, all those groups are going to have to start taking personal accountability. But let's just be honest here. The human condition does not like to take any form of accountability. The human condition is just cold, it's selfish, and it's very prideful, which makes it hard for people to take any kind of personal accountability or at least display some kind of semblance of it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Humans
And
just
we're
don't
gonna.
like being wrong,
We
more
don't like being
importantly.
wrong, exactly, and that's something that I have. Because in my spiritual background, people talk about our egos a lot, right? The ego is like an enemy of your progress sometimes because you don't want to look at yourselves and what you've done wrong and work on it and move forward. Because our egos, we like to be right. We're committed because we want to be good. Like that. That's the most important thing that our egos are attached to is the idea of being good, right? So that's something that we struggle with is admitting our wrongs because we want to be good so bad.
Exactly, though, and this that kind of level of ego and pride is just what's going to tear everything apart and just make a lot of these groups out there that claim to be for advocacy and social justice. That's where they're just going to continue to show how even more useless they are, and how, again, that should just give us the inspiration to just form our own social justice groups, create our own Instagram pages, create our own outreach programs, because that's where those grassroots are going to truly lie. And how it's now time for some of us to stop waiting for a response from the global multi-million-dollar BLM network, because somebody like Patrice Cullors doesn't give a rat's ass about us. Pardon my French. She doesn't.
We're invisible. We're very we're
We're
invisible.
invisible. We're
We're
invisible to
invisible.
her. We're invisible to her billionaire donors who could totally put us up there on the map. They don't care one bit about us
I
because
seen
they
this.
don't
I seen
see.
this quote, man. I seen this quote in our modern day era. People are invisible until they find a market for them, until they could learn how to sell them something. You know how like with the LGBT community, like somebody in the said, it's like they are very they got a lot of clout, they got a lot of power, but there's a market. So they know that like during Pride Month, people have talked about this during Pride Month, how they sell all these products to them because they know there's a market for it. So it's like people are not going to care about mixed people until they find some type of market where they could sell things to them. Then all of a sudden they're going to be visible, and then they're going to, you know what I'm saying? So people, we live in a capitalist society. That's the way society is. People don't really care about anything until you can make money off of it. So that's just how it
Yes,
is.
it all boils down to trade-offs. What's going to be the trade-off when it comes to helping us? A lot of us, we don't have power. We're broke, to be
We don't
honest.
really got nothing. What do we
There's
got,
nothing.
right?
Yeah, so what do we really have?
Body do things out, the
Exactly.
kindness of their heart. It's always about, I accept that. It's always about like an equal exchange. But I don't really think what do we have to exchange? We don't really have nothing, So
Exactly.
we
So
gotta get something
maybe
for ourselves, though. We gotta get
yes.
something for ourselves. But I am about
Exactly.
mutual. Even with the black community, white, whatever, mutual exchange, like mutual. Okay, I help you, you help me. Like we help each other. Like I'm about that. I think that's good. I think we have helped the black community a lot, in the past, and like fighting for um fighting
So,
for rights and fighting the civil rights movement. And there's a lot of mixed people, so
exactly.
we have it, but it wasn't a mutual thing because they're not going to fight for mixed race people and mixed things rights and mixed race. I'm all about just
Because
it being mutual.
a lot of them feel that we actually have a lot of privilege nowadays. That we have privilege for looking like we have
For our
noticeable
proximity to
admixture
whiteness,
within
right?
us.
For our proximity to
Yes,
whiteness. And yeah,
but
I think that
at times I don't always agree with that though, because the fact that a lot of us still continue to receive racial alienation goes against racials or mixed race people have privilege because they're close to whiteness. Yes and no. Sure, maybe sometimes, maybe some white racist guy may not personally see me as a threat to Woods, and maybe somebody who looks like Tyrese Gibson.
or
Could that
we're
be
more
construed?
palatable. We're more palatable. We'll probably get a job or get a position or get something because we're more palatable to whiteness. If we're if it's a white institution or a white business, of course they're gonna probably choose somebody who's closer to whiteness versus somebody who's not, who they don't identify with whatsoever. They're gonna choose somebody who they do somewhat identify with a little bit. So
Yes.
that's valid right there. I could
That
understand
is,
that.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
actually is most definitely valid. That there's
But
no
I don't
denying that
really.
though. But the fact that they're out there still
Mhm.
missing something though, which is still a lot of our people are still in that sunken place of confusion and self hatred, like I always talk about. They still face racial alienation from both sides of their family. So then that's where, let's just say, we become quite less privileged.
Yep, yep. And here's my take on it too, because I see things a lot differently than most. Like as a mixed biracial black white person, I don't agree with the whole racial hierarchy thing, right? I don't care if this group has a lot of money, they have a lot of technology, they have a lot of, but I just don't view them as higher. I view people as equal. I don't agree with the whole racial hierarchy. So I don't view myself as having privilege because, oh yeah, I'm half white, half black, but just because I am half white, I view white people as equal to black people. I don't agree with the whole racial hierarchy thing. Cuz I've been around white people, I've been around black people, and I feel like they do the same thing just different ways, right? We all eat, we all shit, we all fuck, we all are human beings at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. And then,
So
and if
just
you
different
are
ways
like
of
a
doing
color,
things, right? So that's how I view it. I don't view them as higher on a hierarchy than I just don't. So this is how I see it,
I don't either. What I see that though is just generations of hard work of generating revenue and wealth for your community though, because the American Ashkenazi Jewish communities, I mean, they tend to practice an aggressive form of stewardship and nepotism, and they very much look after their own. They'll hire their own, they'll lift their own, they'll open up businesses for their own. And that's why those such as like John Rockefeller started from nothing and then became a billionaire. That is also why there was the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma before it was just horribly, set on fire. That was also an example of successful black community built up wealth out of mere hard work. And then those such Sarah Breed, aka Madam C, Madam what's her name, Madam C.J. Walker, who became one of the female black millionaires in the 19th century. So it's all feasible. It's all feasible for whatever collective to build themselves up and to generate generations of wealth.
Absolutely.
It's just
Agree.
it just takes the right level of spiritual and emotional discipline as well as strong will to make something like that remotely come to fruition.
True, it's all about belief. Like I said, it's all about how we view ourselves. If we view ourselves as capable, strong, smart, creative, talented people, then we're gonna become strong, creative, smart, talented people. You know, if we see ourselves as we're just like these horrible mistakes and abominations and just these, we're gonna feel like shit about ourselves, and we're not gonna want to do anything with our lives because it's like, oh, we shouldn't even be here in the first place. I've been there in that sunken space, like you said. So it's like I just want us to change our view of how we view ourselves. Like we have to view ourselves as capable, as smart, talented. Wow, we could build wealth, we could make it, we could do all these amazing, wonderful things, So I definitely want us to just view ourselves as that, as
Exactly.
mixed people. As a mixed person, you are capable. You can move up in the world. You don't have to be at the bottom. You're not on the bottom of the totem pole. You are strong. You're accepted. You have a community that loves and accepts you in that you're smart, you're beautiful, and I want to talk about this is something I want to talk about, how I feel like as a mixed person, it's like we are only valued because of our beauty, and it's like I think there's a downside to it, because of course I love that we're celebrated for being beautiful, being a beautiful people and everything, but if that's the only thing, because I feel like, as a woman too, it feels like as a woman, I think it affects women more, because women are, a lot of people only value women for how they look too, and that's the double thing. As a mixed person, it's like we're only valued for how we look, and I want us to kind of divest from that, being only valued for how we look. We are more than our looks, of course. We are much more than that. That's why I want us to. It's affected me. It's really affected me, because it's like I had a note right here. It's like the only time we get praised for how we look, and feeling like your whole identity is to look good for other people, and I think that's a mistake, because beauty is always in other people. So if you put your self-esteem, if you put your self-worth in other people's hands, if they decide if you're beautiful or not, it's always a mistake. It's always going to be like, oh, that's always going to be other people's choice if you are worthy or not. So I think that we should take that back. Whether you're conventionally beautiful or you're conventionally not beautiful, as a mixed person, it's like you're valued, you're worthy, you're accepted, you're loved. It's like we have our intrinsic value not recognized a lot, like every human being has intrinsic value, whether you look good, whether you don't, whether you're smart, whether you're not, whether you're this, whether you're born rich, whether you're poor. Human beings have intrinsic value, and mixed people have intrinsic value. We're not just born just to be cute for people, you know so I just want that to get that out there too. I want to make sure people know that they have intrinsic value, that they're loved. Like as a human being, you're a human being, and human beings have immense intrinsic value given by God, and I want mixed people to know that, right? So yeah.
Amen. It also boils down to just realizing that you are enough the way you are. And again, as long as you just
Exactly.
incorporate like the vital principles that I outlined earlier in the stream, then hey, you're going to have the moral high ground. But then also, another pathway to healing is also realizing that the group, now I know I'm going to have to use the B word here though, because this is just me being very blunt about this, because I've done it and a lot of our people have done it as well. And again, it is bootlicking. First things first is that we have to say to some of our people, though, that hey, in order to also guarantee a good pathway to healing, is to stop bootlicking or why for this other group that you're trying so hard to fit and it doesn't, it's working out for you. Not only just stop bootlicking, but also realize is that they are just as flawed as every other collective or as every other individual out there. So for me, when I basically was believing that somehow whites were the master race and how I became so immersed with neo Nazis, I've had to come to that realization that, hey, white people aren't really all that because they are the master race. Then what's up with the higher level of suicide among whites? What's up with the opioid crisis that is disproportionately affecting whites? What's up with the fact that white women, like, are the ones to use like some pretty unhealthy like prescriptions for like mental disorders, mental illness, bipolar, and other psychiatric conditions? definitely doesn't sound like a master race to me. That sounds like a rather flawed race. So white people are flawed,
Oh yeah, I've
black
already
people are
known.
flawed,
Yeah.
and we are most definitely flawed.
Okay, so like I was saying though, sorry. Like I was saying, I've always known that about white people. I've always known they weren't better than nobody. You know what I'm saying? I've always felt like nobody really better than nobody. No race or group or collective or is I feel like we're all human beings at the end of the day. We just have different skin tones, different hair types, different cultures, different languages, but at the end of the day, human beings are human beings, you know. Human beings are going to be humans. And so that's yeah.
No, absolutely, though. Now, of course, like when people say that, well, there are like racial differences, though, in terms of like hormone or issue have like their different personalities or health issues. Sure, that's true, and we can say there's validity to analogy, but we're still more similar than we are different in a
I
humanly
agree.
sense.
I agree. I agree.
Of
I
course,
agree. And
of
yeah,
course we're
and I
different. Of course,
we're
there are
different.
differences across ethnic, but we can still be more similar than different.
Yeah, and even in these biracial mixed spaces, some people think that, oh, we're better or I don't agree with that either. I think we are different. We have our advantages, we have our disadvantages, just like every other group of people, right? So I don't agree with that either. And I just want us to just have a positive, loving, have some pride about ourselves, just like I believe everybody, wherever you come from, whatever culture you come from, whatever background, I think you should have some pride about yourself. You should love yourself because you're here, you survived. You did what we're meant to do as humans. We're meant to survive. So that's what we're doing. I think we're meant to thrive too at the same time. So let me go back to my little notes. Okay, I had a weird thought. Okay, so here's one of my little shower thoughts. So you know how they talk about cellular DNA, cellular trauma DNA being passed down, right? Have you heard about that?
Yes,
You've
like
you've heard about
generational
that, right?
trauma.
Do you know how it seemed like most like racist grandparents they end up having like mixed kids, you know? Have you noticed that?
I definitely see that around here in Southern Nevada.
Maybe there's some like cellular DNA that's be like some anti like the trauma of being like there's some trauma. I don't know, something. There's some there I think we have that too. We have that cellular trauma DNA that we need to face and heal. But that's kind of a weird random shower thought that I had. So
I mean, I would say that, like generational trauma is very real, but just people don't cope with it in the right ways.
I see. I see. Yeah, it is. And so I want to talk about the history too. Like we're all about learning about our history in these spaces. And like I was saying, it makes me feel bitter sometimes. I'm like, wow, like they really did we have a horrible history as well too. That it's very discriminated against us. They sterilized us and they've genocided against mixed people as well. They didn't want us to exist. So it's just like we have like such a sad history too. And it's like, how do we heal from that? How do we stop? I don't want to be bitter, but I have felt really sad and very depressed about it. And I'm like, damn, this is serious. Like it's nothing, and it's hidden away. Most people are not aware of it. Most people are not really. That's why people are like, oh, you're mixed, you're privileged, you're this, you're this. But if you look at the history of how mixed people have been treated, is no joke. Like it's real no joke. Like it's sad, you know.
Such as Hans Hock that I was talking about yesterday. Just 1 second, guys. I think Magic is just handling her kids at the moment, but we'll be back momentarily.
Sorry, I need to go outside. Hello.
Hey.
Sorry, my kids. I might have to go soon. My kids, they're
You like to
yeah, I
say,
do want to say, like, I just want us to just question how we view how we view, because how we treat ourselves is how we're going to treat each other. So we have to have healthy individuals in order to have a healthy community. And I want us to view ourselves in the best light so we could view each other in the best light. That's all I want.
amen? And this, what I just want for us to heal as mixed race people is, again, just those vital principles that I outlined already. Those are self compassion, self forgiveness, self acceptance, and just realizing that you are enough. You are just beautiful the way you are. And if you could have those and basically take in those principles, you'll be on top of the world, or at least you'll feel like you are, but it'll definitely give you more of a confidence boost, and it'll actually give you a sense of peace and stability. And then also realize that whatever group you're trying so hard to fit in, you also start to have to see the fact that that group is flawed. That group is no better than anyone else. And it's just time to just start being yourself and stop trying to be something you're not.
Not ended on that. That's very nice. Thank you so
Yep.
much, everybody, for coming out. I hope you guys got something from this, and I love all of y'all. And yeah, it was a great conversation. I got a lot out of it. I love conversating with you. I love these lives, and yeah, I appreciate it. All right.
Anytime. And yeah, be sure to upload this because I'm going to share
For
some of this
sure.
on my Instagram